Time to talk about some green and gold taking on the Bears this weekend. Rob, Joshy had a really unique way of looking at this past weekend when the Packers were idle, obviously on the bye. He said that the cracks you saw with the Lions and the Vikings and the Bears just being really, really bad and the Jets LOL was sort of a de facto win for the Packers this weekend. Can you buy that theory? Because I'm kind of right there with him. Like, yes, the Vikings won, and yes, the Lions won. You would have probably preferred the other outcomes in both of those games. Right. But as bad as they both looked, it feels like there was some good things happening for the green and gold, even with them not playing.
I can see why Josh floated that theory, and I get it. But on the flip side, the Lions and Vikings both won those games, and sometimes winning a game ugly can do a lot for a team as well. You know, like you can be like, boy, we know we got lucky there, and we got to step it up and clean some things up. So, if I were the Packers, I'd feel a heck of a lot better if one or both of those teams had lost. But maybe Goff got his bad game out of the way. And maybe the Vikings will figure it out. I do think the Bears at this point are probably headed in the wrong direction and a lost cause. Although you're going into that place this weekend, so you can never take anything for granted.
Does it scare you a little bit, Rob, the way they got embarrassed at home? And the Bears always win ugly. Like, I think the Packers win, but I think the fact that they were embarrassed, unless they've already quit on 𝘂𝘼𝘃𝙀𝙀, then I would have felt better if they beat the Patriots, even though, both teams are very good.
Like you're going into a wounded animal a little bit, Chewy, for the Packers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I see what I feel you. Like I've said before, though, like I really think momentum is a big thing in this league and in sports in general. And Bears don't have it, man. I mean, they don't have any of it. So I think the Packers are in a pretty darn good situation coming off a bye, going in there. I really do.
Rob, you had the piece last week, ESPN.com, about the 4 things the Packers needed to fix to make a run into the playoffs. Those 4 things being Jordan Love's interceptions, drops, penalties, and the pass rush. Which one of those 4 do you think is the most likely to get fixed coming out of the bye?
I think the interceptions are probably going to just be a thing they're going to have to deal with. Drops is probably not the most critical. I guess I would say penalties. That's probably the easiest thing to correct, Gabe, because those are discipline things, right? Those are focus issues, technique issues. They're going to get back to practice today. It's a little bit sort of a bonus practice. You don't normally obviously practice on Monday. And I would have to think there's going to be a lot of individual periods spent on technique and things like that. The other thing, too, maybe they have to use a little bit less of Jordan Love's hard count and cadence to get the offensive line, to stop false. And it's actually not even the offensive line. I mean, we saw false starts from a running back and a receiver last week. So I would say that's probably the easiest fix. I don't think Jordan Love's going to end up with 20 interceptions. I don't think he's going to double what he's got. But I think they might have to live with a few more of those.
Rob Demovsky hanging out with Jen, Gabe, and Chewy. Okay, I'm looking at the Packers schedule, and ahead of them, they obviously have the Bears game. We've talked about that. Then they've got the 49ers, then the Dolphins, and the Lions. This 4-game stretch feels very critical for the Green Bay Packers. And I'm looking at the Miami Dolphins right now. They're taking on the Rams tonight. Rams are 2.5-point favorites at home tonight. The Dolphins have only won 2 games this season.
Right.
If you had to guess their record over the next 4 games, how they'll go in that 4-game stretch, what would you say right now?
San Francisco is kind of the wild card in there, right? Like Packers have, had trouble with them before out there. More this game is here. So, I would say at worst they're 2-2 in that stretch with losses to, San Francisco and Detroit. I think 3-1 is reasonable. I definitely think San Francisco is beatable. The way the Detroit game went, I don't see them going there winning, but I would have told you the same thing last year on Thanksgiving, and they start the game with the deep pass to Christian Watson and basically never looked back.
Rob, you had pass rush is one of your 4. We didn't even talk about it. Is that because we're resigned to they are what they are? I mean, I don't see him getting any
Yeah.
better. No one's going to develop the hump in the next 3 weeks.
No, you're right. That's why Chewy. It's on the coaching staff to come up with something, right? Like
Yeah.
they've been creative with some of their pressure packages, like we talked about before. Like they blitzed linebackers and safeties, but that doesn't always mean they actually rush five. They might their rush five or more percentage is, I think, second or third lowest in the league the last time I looked before the games this weekend. They might just have to send five or more often. I mean, like you cannot sit there and let quarterbacks pick you apart. Good quarterbacks anyway. And they still have some good quarterbacks coming up. I still think Purdy's a really good quarterback. We don't know necessarily about the Miami situation. Detroit, Minnesota again. They've got some good quarterbacks that they're playing. And you just can't let good players sit back there and pick you apart. The time allowed in the pocket is just way too much, and time the quarterbacks are having to throw, whether inside or outside the pocket. It's just you can't play winning defense that way.
So with that, Preston Smith traded away at the deadline. Rob, why do you think �々didn't say during his press conference that, Preston came to us, requested a trade, and instead let that be known once he arrived in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting, Gabe. I mean, oftentimes, as you guys know, the Packers don't like to air players' businesses. Like when it comes to injuries, they'd say, hey, he's going to be out, but you need to ask the player about it. Maybe they didn't want to, air Preston's dirty laundry. But I think it would make the trade a little bit more understandable from the Packers standpoint, and like, honestly, I'm surprised that they didn't leak it, even if 𝘃 didn't want to get up there and say it. Sometimes they'll leak a little bit of an explanation behind the scenes. So I'm a little bit surprised at that. The only thing, and I'm not saying Preston's not telling the truth, but could Preston be trying to save face a little bit too? And who knows? Like could he have maybe didn't ask for a trade, but he gets traded and he's feeling hurt about it and feeling unwanted, and maybe that's why he said it. I don't know. I'm just floating that as a possible theory. But I do think it's a little surprising that they didn't honor off the record, sort of explain what went into the trade, if that is indeed what happened.
Rob Demovsky is on Jen, Gabe, and Chewy with us this Monday morning. Okay, one of the things we have talked about is the MVP and the LVP for the first half of the season. Who has been the Packers' MVP, the most valuable player, contributing to where they are in the records? And who has been the LVP? We got some candidates here. Stokes, Gary, LVN, Clark. Who do you think has been the MVP and the LVP of the first half of the season?
Man, I swear, I've said this to you, Jen, before. I think you get our ESPN NFL Nation emails because our assignment
I
for
don't.
This week's
so this is, I think you know what I am? I'm an ESPN medium is what I am.
Rob, we've known she's gotten those emails for years because she cheats all the time when we do power rankings on Tuesday, so it makes a lot of sense.
So our power ranking blurb assignment this week is who is the non-quarterback MVP of the midseason mark for the team you cover. So, like, to me, and I haven't done the assignment yet because I've been thinking about it. They send this out as soon as the Sunday night game is over. We get this email. Not that anybody needs to know when we get our emails, but my initial thought was for the MVP. Obviously, you said non-quarterback was Xavier McKinney. I still like what Josh Jacobs has done for them. I really do. It's interesting that the two guys I'm considering, and maybe there's others that I need to consider, are the free agent additions. I think the other way, the other least valuable, I think Rashawn Gary is the runaway in that. I mean, he just, maybe you shouldn't hold a guy's contract and salary against him, but when you pay a guy that kind of money and the production is what it's been, that's hugely disappointing. They'd rather, Stokes, they'd rather not have to play him as much as they are. I still wonder about Van Ness when he's going to maybe flip the switch and sort of become what they hope he is. But to me, it's Rashawn Gary and at this point, Xavier McKinney, but I'm open to consider other possibilities on the MVP side.
Rob, do you agree with 𝘃𝘃's philosophy when he says, one of the reasons for shipping Preston Smith out is these young guys need reps to make them better? I don't buy it. I don't buy it. I mean, if you're good, you play. If you're good, you play.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I don't buy it because I'm not sure there's anybody back there that has just been unbelievable, and you got to get him more snaps. You know what I mean? Like, Mosby had a half a sack in his first playing time the other day, but I'm not saying all of a sudden, wow, Aaron Mosby, we got to get him 35 snaps a game. I don't. To me, I just don't see where pass rush comes without the coaching staff, dialing something up.
Rob, before we let you go, last night I went to the Hollywood Medium at the Riverside. It's this young man, Tyler Henry. He's Netflix famous, Celebrity World famous. And these guys were raking me over the coals for it, man.
Just telling me. Raking him over the coals, I guess, because you went to the show, but adjacent you were being.
Basically telling me I'm a sucker, basically telling me I'm a mark. Good job handing this guy your $45 per ticket, by the way.
That's what I was going to ask. Did you pay or were you comped?
We paid for our tickets.
You hesitated there.
You're saying it would have been better if we hadn't paid for our tickets?
Trust me, I'm not one to shy away from a guest list or a guest pass here or there. So
you could have went to Blockbuster and got Fletch Lives for probably $3.
At what Blockbuster, Chew?
It's been a little more expensive to get the DeLorean to go back in time to go to Blockbuster.
I know that one time I definitely owned Fletch on VHS. I don't know if I owned Fletch.
Almost saved you $3.
We had five movies when I was a sophomore in college, and we had no cable in our dorm. We had 5 movies on VHS that we just rotated. I'm pretty sure it was Fletch, Goodfellas, Bull Durham, About Last Night, and don't judge me for this, because if one of us happened to actually have a date, we had When Harry Met Sally.
Oh, a great
movie. There you go. That's a pretty good rotation.
I know. That's it for five films?
Yeah,
that's a pretty good 5 films.
At one time, I could probably recite every line from all 5 of them. We just played it over and over again.
I love that. Dan wants to know if anyone has an oceanfront property in Arizona they'd like to sell Jen this morning. All right, Rob, we appreciate you hanging out with us this morning. Always good stuff, and we very much look forward to this week. It is Bears week here on Jen, Gabe, and Chewy and ESPN Milwaukee, and that never disappoints. See you, Rob.
All right. Have a great week.